In the end the sea snake made 9 voyages. On the 9th, Sir Corlys took her back to Qarth, laden with enough gold to buy 20 more ships and load them all with saffron, pepper, nutmeg, elephants, and bolts of the finest silk. Only 14 of the fleet arrived safely at Driftmark, and all the elephants died at sea, yet even so the profits from that voyage were so vast that the Velaryons became the wealthiest house in the 7 kingdoms, eclipsing even the Hightowers and Lannisters, albeit briefly. This wealth Sir Corlys put to good use when his aged grandsire died at the age of 88, and the sea snake became Lord of the Tides. The seat of House Velaryon was Castle Driftmark, a dark, grim place, always damp and often flooded. Lord Corlys raised a new castle on the far side of the island. High Tide was built of the same pale stone as the Eyrie, its slender towers crowned with roofs of beaten silver that flashed in the sun. When the morning and evening tides rolled in, the castle was surrounded by the sea, connected to Driftmark proper only by a causeway. To this new castle, Lord Corlys moved the ancient driftwood throne, a gift from the Merling King, according to legend. The sea snake built ships as well. The royal fleet tripled in size during the years he served the old king as master of ships. Even after giving up that office, he continued to build, turning out merchantmen and trading galleys in place of warships. Beneath the dark, salt-stained walls of Castle Driftmark 3 modest fishing villages grew together into a thriving town called Hull, for the rows of ship hulls that could always be seen below the castle. Across the island, near high tide, another village was transformed into Spicetown, its wharves and piers crowded with ships from the free cities and beyond. Sitting athwart the gullet, Driftmark was closer to the narrow sea than Duskendale or King's Landing, so Spicetown soon began to usurp much of the shipping that would elsewise have made for those ports, and House Velaryon grew ever richer and more powerful. Lord Corlys was an ambitious man. During his 9 voyages on the Sea Snake, he was forever wanting to press onward, to go where none had gone before and see what lay beyond the maps. Though he had accomplished much and more in life, he was seldom satisfied, the men who knew him best would say. In Rhaenys Targaryen, daughter of the old king's eldest son and heir, he had found his perfect match, a woman as spirited and beautiful and proud as any in the realm, and a dragonrider as well. His sons and daughters would soar through the skies, Lord Corlys expected, and one day one of them would sit the Iron Throne. Unsurprisingly, the sea snake was bitterly disappointed when Prince Aemon died and King Jaehaerys bypassed Aemon's daughter, Rhaenys, in favor of his brother, Baelon the Spring Prince. But now, it seemed, the wheel had turned again, and the wrong could be righted. Thus did Lord Corlys and his wife, the Princess Rhaenys, arrive at Harrenhal in high state, using the wealth and influence of House Velaryon to persuade the lords assembled that their son, Laenor, should be recognized as heir to the Iron Throne. In these efforts they were joined by the Lord of Storm's End, Boromund Baratheon, great-uncle to Rhaenys and great-great-uncle to the boy Laenor, by Lord Stark of Winterfell, Lord Manderley of White Harbor, Lord Dustin of Barrowton, Lord Blackwood of Raventry, Lord Bar Emmon of Sharp Point, Lord Celtigar of Claw Isle, and others. They were nowhere near enough. Though Lord and Lady Velaryon were eloquent and open-handed in their efforts on behalf of their son, the decision of the Great Council was never truly in doubt. By a lopsided margin, the lords assembled chose Viserys Targaryen as the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. Though the maesters who tallied the votes never revealed the actual numbers, it was said afterward that the vote had been more than 20-1. King Jaehaerys had not attended the council, but when word of their verdict reached him, his grace thanked the lords for their service and gratefully conferred the style Prince of Dragonstone upon his grandson Viserys. Storm's End and Driftmark accepted the decision, if grudgingly. The vote had been so overwhelming that even Laenor's father and mother saw that they could not hope to prevail. In the eyes of many, the Great Council of 101 AC thereby established an iron precedent on matters of succession. Regardless of seniority, the Iron Throne of Westeros could not pass to a woman, nor through a woman to her male descendants. Of the last years in the reign of King Jaehaerys, little and less need be said. Prince Baelon had served his father as Hand of the King as well as Prince of Dragonstone, but after his death his grace elected to divide those honors. As his new hand, he called upon Sir Otto Hightower, younger brother to Lord Hightower of Aldtown. Sir Otto brought his wife and children to court with him, and served King Jaehaerys faithfully for the years remaining to him. As the old king's strength and wits began to fail, he was oft confined to his bed. Sir Otto's precocious 15-year-old daughter, Alicent, became his constant companion, fetching his grace his meals, reading to him, helping him to bathe and dress himself. The old king sometimes mistook her for one of his daughters, calling her by their names. Near the end, he grew certain she was his daughter Sarah, returned to him from beyond the narrow sea. In the year 103 AC, King Jaehaerys I Targaryen died in his bed as Lady Alicent was reading to him from Septon Barth's Unnatural History. His Grace was 69 years of age, and had reigned over the Seven Kingdoms since coming to the Iron Throne at the age of 14. His remains were burned in the Dragon Pit, his ashes interred with good Queen Alysanne's on Dragonstone. All of Westeros mourned. Even in Dorne, where his writ had not extended, men wept and women tore their garments. In accordance with his own wishes, and the decision of the Great Council of 101, his grandson Viserys succeeded him, mounting the Iron Throne as King Viserys I Targaryen. At the time of his ascent, King Viserys was 26 years old. He had been married for a decade to a cousin, Lady Aemma of House Arryn, herself a granddaughter of the old king and good Queen Alysanne through her mother, the late Princess Daela d. 82 AC. Lady Aemma had suffered several miscarriages and the death of one son in the cradle over the course of her marriage. Some maesters felt she had been married and bedded too young, but she had also given birth to a healthy daughter, Rhaenyra born 97 AC. The new king and his queen both doted on the girl, their only living child. Many consider the reign of King Viserys I to represent the apex of Targaryen power in Westeros. Beyond a doubt, there were more lords and princes claiming the blood of the dragon than at any period before or since. Though the Targaryens had continued their traditional practice of marrying brother to sister, uncle to niece, and cousin to cousin wherever possible, there had also been important matches outside the royal family, the fruit of which would play important roles in the war to come. There were more dragons than ever before as well, and several of the she-dragons were regularly producing clutches of eggs. Not all of these eggs hatched, but many did, and it became customary for the fathers and mothers of newborn princelings to place a dragon's egg in their cradles, following a tradition that Princess Rhaena had begun. Many years before, the children so blessed invariably bonded with the hatchlings to become dragon riders. Viserys I Targaryen had a generous, amiable nature, and was well loved by his lords and smallfolk alike. The reign of the young king, as the commons called him upon his ascent, was peaceful and prosperous. His grace's open-handedness was legendary, and the Red Keep became a place of song and splendor. King Viserys and Queen Aemma hosted many a feast and tourney, and lavished gold, offices, and honors on their favorites. At the center of the merriment, cherished and adored by all, was their only surviving child, Princess Rhaenyra, the little girl the court singers dubbed, the realm's delight. Though only 6 when her father came to the Iron Throne, Rhaenyra Targaryen was a precocious child, bright and bold and beautiful as only one of dragon's blood can be beautiful. At 7, she became a dragon rider, taking to the sky on the young dragon she named Syrax, after a goddess of old Valyria. At 8, the princess was placed into service as a cupbearer, but for her own father, the king. At table, at tourney, and at court, King Viserys thereafter was seldom seen without his daughter by his side. Meanwhile, the tedium of rule was left largely to the king's small council in his hand. Sir Otto Hightower had continued in that office, serving the grandson as he had the grandsire. An able man, all agreed, though many found him proud, brusque, and haughty. The longer he served, the more imperious Sir Otto became, it was said, and many great lords and princes came to resent his manner and envy him his access to the Iron Throne. The greatest of his rivals was Daemon Targaryen, the king's ambitious, impetuous, moody younger brother. As charming as he was hot-tempered, Prince Daemon had earned his knight's spurs at 6 and 10, and had been given dark sister by the old king himself in recognition of his prowess. Though he had wed the Lady of Runestone in 97 AC, during the old king's reign, the marriage had not been a success. Prince Daemon found the Vale of Arryn boring. In the Vale, the men fuck sheep, he wrote. You cannot fault them. Their sheep are prettier than their women. And soon developed a mislike of his lady wife, whom he called, my bronze bitch, after the runic bronze armor worn by the lords of House Royce. Upon the accession of his brother to the Iron Throne, the prince petitioned to have his marriage set aside. Viserys denied the request, but did allow Daemon to return to court, where he sat on the small council, serving as Master of Coin from 103 to 104, and Master of Laws for half a year in 104. Governance bored this warrior prince, however. He did better when King Viserys made him commander of the city watch. Finding the watchmen ill-armed and clad in oddments and rags, Demon equipped each man with dirk, short sword, and cudgel, armored them in black ringmail with breastplates for the officers, and gave them long golden cloaks that they might wear with pride. Ever since, the men of the city watch have been known as gold cloaks. Prince Demon took eagerly to the work of the gold cloaks, and oft prowled the alleys of King's Landing with his men. That he made the city more orderly no man could doubt, but his discipline was a brutal one. He delighted in cutting off the hands of pickpockets, gelding rapists, and slitting the noses of thieves, and slew 3 men in street brawls during his first year as commander. Before long, the prince was well known in all the low places of King's Landing. He became a familiar sight in wine sinks where he drank for free, and gambling pits where he always left with more coin than when he entered. Though he sampled countless whores in the city's brothels, and was said to have an especial fondness for deflowering maidens, a certain Lysan dancing girl soon became his favorite. Mysaria was the name she went by, though her rivals and enemies called her Misery, the White Worm. As King Viserys had no living son, Demon regarded himself as the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, and coveted the title Prince of Dragonstone, which his grace refused to grant him. But by the end of year 105 AC, he was known to his friends as the Prince of the City and to the small folk as Lord Fleabottom. Though the king did not wish Demon to succeed him, he remained fond of his younger brother, and was quick to forgive his many offenses. Princess Rhaenyra was also enamored of her uncle, for Demon was ever attentive to her. Whenever he crossed the narrow sea upon his dragon, he brought her some exotic gift on his return. The king had grown soft and plump over the years. Viserys never claimed another dragon after Balerion's death, nor did he have much taste for the joust, the hunt, or swordplay, whereas Prince Demon excelled in thesespheres, and seemed all that his brother was not. Lean and hard, a renowned warrior, dashing, daring, more than a little dangerous. And here we must digress to say a word about our sources, for much of what happened in the years that followed happened behind closed doors, in the privacy of stairwells, council rooms, and bedchambers, and the full truth of it will likely never be known. We have of course the chronicles laid down by Grand Maester Runciter and his successors, and many a court document as well, all the royal decrees and proclamations, but these tell only a small part of the story. For the rest, we must look to accounts written decades later by the children and grandchildren of those caught up in the events of these times, lords and knights reporting events witnessed by their forebears, third-hand recollections of aged serving men relating the scandals of their youth. Whilst these are undoubtedly of use, so much time passed between the event and the recording that many confusions and contradictions have inevitably crept in. Nor do these remembrances always agree. Unfortunately, this is also true of the 2 accounts by first-hand observers that have come down to us. Septon Eustace, who served in the royal sept in the Red Keep during much of this time, and later rose to the ranks of the most devout, set down the most detailed history at this period. As a confidant and confessor to King Viserys and his queens, Eustace was well placed to know much and more of what went on. Nor was he reticent about recording even the most shocking and salacious rumors and accusations, though the bulk of the reign of King Viserys, first of his name, and the dance of the dragons that came after remains a sober and somewhat ponderous history. To balance Eustace, we have the testimony of Mushroom, based upon the verbal account of the court fool, set down by a scribe who failed to append his name, who at various times capered for the amusement of King Viserys, Princess Rhaenyra, and both Aegons, the second and third. A 3-foot-tall dwarf possessed of an enormous head, and, he avers, an even more enormous member, Mushroom was thought feeble-minded, so kings and lords and princes did not scruple to hide their secrets from him. Whereas Septon Eustace records the secrets of bedchamber and brothel in hushed, condemnatory tones, Mushroom delights in the same, and his testimony consists of little but ribald tales and gossip, hiling stabbings, poisonings, betrayals, seductions, and debaucheries one atop the other. How much of this can be believed is a question the honest historian cannot hope to answer, but it is worth noting that King Baelor the Blessed decreed that every copy of Mushroom's chronicle should be burned. Fortunately for us, a few escaped his fires. Septon Eustace and Mushroom do not always agree upon particulars, and at times their accounts are considerably at variance with one another, and with the court records and the chronicles of Grand Maester Runciter and his successors. Yet their tales do explain much and more that might otherwise seem puzzling, and later accounts confirm enough of their stories to suggest that they contain at least some portion of truth. The question of what to believe and what to doubt remains for each student to decide. On one point Mushroom, Septon Eustace, Grand Maester Runcitor, and all our other sources concur, Sir Otto Hightower, the king's hand, took a great dislike to the king's brother. It was Sir Otto who convinced Viserys to remove Prince Daemon as Master of Coin, and then as Master of Laws, actions the hand soon came to regret. As commander of the City Watch, with 2,000 men under his command, Daemon waxed more powerful than ever. On no account can Prince Daemon be allowed to ascend to the Iron Throne, the Hand wrote his brother, Lord of Aldtown. He would be a second Maegor the Cruel, or worse. It was Sir Otto's wish then, that Princess Rhaenyra succeed her father. Better the realm's delight than Lord Flea Bottom, he wrote. Nor was he alone in his opinion. Yet his party faced a formidable hurdle. If the precedent set by the Great Council of 101 was followed, a male claimant must prevail over a female. In the absence of a trueborn son, the king's brother would come before the king's daughter, as Balon had come before Rhaenys in 92 AC. As for the king's own views, all the chronicles agree that King Viserys hated dissension. Though far from blind to his brother's flaws, he cherished his memories of the free-spirited, adventurous boy that Daemon had been. His daughter was his life's great joy, he often said, but a brother is a brother. Time and time again he strove to make peace between Prince Daemon and Sir Otto, but the enmity between the two men roiled endlessly beneath the false smiles they wore at court. When pressed upon the matter, King Viserys would only say that he was certain his queen would soon present him with a son. On Dean 105 AC, he announced to the court and small council that Queen Aemma was once again with child. During that same fateful year, Sir Criston Cole was appointed to Thekkingsguard to fill the place created by the death of the legendary Sir Ryam Redwyn. Born the son of a steward in service to Lord Dondarrion of Blackhaven, Sir Criston was a comely young knight of 23 years. He first came to the attention of the court when he won the melee held at Maidenpool in honor of King Viserys' accession. In the final moments of the fight, Sir Criston knocked Dark Sister from Prince Daemon's hand with his Morning Star, to the delight of his grace and the fury of the prince. Afterward, he gave the 7-year-old Princess Rhaenyra the victor's laurel and begged for her favor to wear in the joust. In the lists, he defeated Prince Daemon once again, and enhorsed both of the celebrated Cargyle twins, Sir Eric and Sir Eric of the Kingsguard, before falling to Lord Lymond Mallister. With his pale green eyes, coal-black hair, and easy charm, Cole soon became a favorite of all the ladies at court. Not the least amongst them Rhaenyra Targaryen herself. So smitten was she by the charms of the man she called, my White Knight, that Rhaenyra begged her father to name Sir Criston her own personal shield and protector. His grace indulged her in this, as in so much else. Thereafter Sir Criston always wore her favor in the lists and became a fixture at her side during feasts and frolics. Not long after Sir Criston donned his white cloak, King Viserys invited Lionel Strong, Lord of Harrenhal, to join the small council as Master of Laws. A big man, burly and balding, Lord Strong enjoyed a formidable reputation as a battler. Those who did not know him oft took him for a brute, mistaking his silences and slowness of speech for stupidity. This was far from the truth. Lord Lionel had studied at the Citadel as a youth, earning 6 links of his chain before deciding that a maester's life was not for him. He was literate and learned, his knowledge of the laws of the 7 kingdoms exhaustive. Thrice wed and thrice a widower, the Lord of Harrenhal brought 2 maiden daughters and 2 sons to court with him. The girls became handmaids to Princess Rhaenyra, whilst their elder brother, Sir Harwin Strong, called Breekbones, was made a captain in the Gold Cloaks. The younger boy, Larrys the Clubfoot, joined the king's confessors. Thus did matters stand in King's Landing late in the year 105 AC, when Queen Aemma was brought to bed in Maegor's Holdfast and died whilst giving birth to the son that Viserys Targaryen had desired for so long. The boy, named Balon, after the king's father, survived her only by a day, leaving king and court bereft, save perhaps for Prince Daemon, who was observed in a brothel on the Street of Silk, making drunken japes with his high-born cronies about the heir for a day. When word of this got back to the king, legend says that it was the horse sitting in Daemon's lap who informed on him, but evidence suggests it was actually one of his drinking companions, a captain in the gold cloaks eager for advancement. Viserys became livid. His grace had finally had a surfeit of his ungrateful brother and his ambitions. Once his mourning for his wife and son had run its course, the king moved swiftly to resolve the long-simmering issue of the succession. Disregarding the precedents set by King Jaehaerys in 92 and the Great Council in 101, Viserys declared his daughter, Rhaenyra, to be his rightful heir, and named her Princess of Dragonstone. In a lavish ceremony at King's Landing, hundreds of lords did obeisance to the realm's delight as she sat at her father's feet at the base of the Iron Throne, swearing to honor and defend her right of succession. Prince Daemon was not amongst them, however. Furious at the king's decree, the prince quit King's Landing, resigning from the city watch. He went first to Dragonstone, taking his paramour Mysaria with him upon the back of his dragon Caraxes, the lean red beast the smallfolk called the Blood Wyrm. There he remained for half a year, during which time he got Mysaria with child. When he learned that his concubine was pregnant, Prince Daemon presented her with a dragon's egg, but in this he again went too far and woke his brother's wrath. King Viserys commanded him to return the egg, send his whore away, and return to his lawful wife, or else be attainted as a traitor. The prince obeyed, though with ill grace, dispatching Mysaria eggless back to Lee, whilst he himself flew to Runestone in the Vale in the unwelcome company of his bronze bitch. But Mysaria lost her child during a storm on the narrow sea. When word reached Prince Daemon he spoke no syllable of grief, but his heart hardened against the king, his brother. Thereafter he spoke of King Viserys only with disdain, and began to brood day and night on the succession. Though Princess Rhaenyra had been proclaimed her father's successor, there were many in the realm, at court and beyond it, who still hoped that Viserys might father a male heir, for the young king was not yet 30. Grand Maester Roncitor was the first to urge his grace to remarry, even suggesting a suitable choice, the Lady Laena Velaryon, who had just turned 12. A fiery young maiden, freshly flowered, Lady Laena had inherited the beauty of a true Targaryen from her mother, Rhaenys, and a bold, adventurous spirit from her father, the sea snake. As Lord Corlys loved to sail, Laena loved to fly, and had claimed for her own no less a mount than mighty Vhagar, the oldest and largest of the Targaryen dragons since the passing of the Black Dread in 94 AC. By taking the girl to wife, the king could heal the rift that had grown up between the Iron Throne and Driftmark, Roncitor pointed out. And Laena would surely make a splendid queen.